Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Ring, 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 ring. Hello, Maynard International Studios. Oh, Richard, how? You sound terrible. You want me to do what? You want me to read the whole? Okay. You want me to be you for a show? Well, I can be you for a show, but really, I can't do that haircut. No one can. Hang on, I'll just put you on hold, and then we'll get into it. Okay? Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode 451 for the 3rd of March, 2019. Maynard here, filling in for Richard Saunders, who's been struck down with the flu. Actual recording from Richard's house there, being struck down with the flu as we speak. And of course, it's I'm filling in for Richard. I've got to give you the weather report. It's 80 degrees Celsius in Adelaide. Parts of Victoria are on fire. Unfortunately, Darwin is really sweaty. It's raining in parts of Brisbane, and where I am, it's dry in my underwear. But apparently, according to doctors, Richard has a cold, flu, or perhaps an infection. So if there's a doctor in their house, I give him a ring and do some Reiki healing over the phone, because secretly I just know he's into that. Now, before Richard crawled into his sickbed, he managed to produce this week's show, including first up an interview with Susan Gerbic about an undercover operation to catch a so-called psychic, which was Roger Moore's first film, To Catch a So-Called Psychic. Fantastic. Now, was this psychic getting his information from the heavens? It seemed more likely the information his psychic was getting was coming from the cloud, and I don't mean cumulonimbulus. Now, this is a huge story, even being published in the New York Times, and it's really put skepticism back on the map for the time being. And there will be links in the show notes, so listen to his interview with Susan Gerbic. After that, the now ailing and croaky Richard Saunders, before his voice gave up, read another report from the pages of the Skeptic magazine from Australian Skeptics. This week, a look at homeopathy and some of those flyers homeopaths like to leave in doctors' waiting rooms. Look, you've got to go to university for longer than a week to be a doctor, so why would you bother? If you could just make a flyer. How many times have I told people I'm a doctor? Well, look, as I like to say, I may not be a doctor, but I do have a prescription pad. Stay tuned at the end of the show for more news, but for now, it's time for me to go downstairs and get myself a... while you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Joining me now on the line all the way from Salinas, California, it's Susan Gerbic from Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. Hello, Susan.
Hello, Richard. Hello, all you Skeptic Zone listeners out there.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had Mark Edward on the show telling us, alluding to an upcoming Sting project, something like that. And I've asked you to come on today because just in the last 24 hours, as we're recording this, the news is broken.
Yes.
The news is broken. We've got all sorts of operations to talk about. We've got Operation Pizza Roll, Operation Peach Pit. We've got somebody called the Seatbelt Psychic Susan. We've got the New York Times. It's going crazy. Can you please put this together for our listeners?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yes. It does feel like it's a lot of different operations. It does feel like there's a lot going on, but in essence, I've been trying to catch a psychic in a hot read for a very long time. A hot read is, as your listeners probably know, are people who are trying to they get information from knowing something about you. There's lots of ways of doing that. So catching a psychic in a cold read is pretty simple, and we've done that many times. So I've done many operations trying to catch someone. The New York Times said that if I could catch a hot read, they wanted to do a story on me. So I've been trying for a long time. Operation Bumblebee, Operation Ice Cream Cone. And then we've done other things in the past, and I've written a lot about Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium, and he is Operation Tater Tot.
Tater Tot. Who comes up with all these names?
I do. You do. Yeah. I have a lot of fun trying to come up with something that doesn't have already operation in front of it. I
see.
There's a method for my madness, trust me.
I do trust you. Look, if you ever bust an Australian psychic, let's call it Operation Tim Tam or Vegemite or something like
that'd be fine. And I could do this in Australia. There's not any reason why I couldn't. It would just be a matter of finding the right psychic to do. And sure, we could do this. It wouldn't be hard, but you're really looking for somebody who's hot reading or likely to hot read. So what happened is somebody brought Thomas John. He's the Manhattan medium who happened to be in L.A. He spends a lot of time in Los Angeles and a lot of time in L.A. and Chicago, and he has a little bit of a following. And they brought him to my attention. I'd never heard of him before, and I said, "Oh, okay, I can do that." So we put together a sting. It took us about 10 days, and listeners probably understand what had happened is that we created fake Facebook pages, and Mark Edward and myself went to the sting as husband and wife, dressed to be cold red, by the way, in case he didn't hot read us. We paid for VIP tickets, sat up in the front, and he, within 3 readings, he was on us and reading these fake Facebook pages, and it should be real. And he went through reading off the Facebook pages, all the content on there. But it's real important that you understand that Mark and I did not know what was on those Facebook pages. We were locked out of those accounts from the beginning. We only knew some very simple things, and all the details we weren't purview to.
Susan, let me jump in here. This is really important because I've seen here in Australia when certain psychics have been busted with people delivering false information, they will use excuses like, oh, they were reading the fact that there was false information, or they were using their psychic powers to delve into people's mind and whatever, and they could see this. But what you've done is you've made sure that when you've gone into the show, you did not know the information that this psychic would mysteriously reveal.
Absolutely. I mean, we were in Hollywood, California. One of the people who arranged those Facebook pages was Michelle Franklin up in Humpty Doo, Australia. So you can't get much farther than that from Australia. So if he was, in Hollywood, so if he was reading Michelle's mind, that's really good.
And she gets a mention, along with yourself and lots of other people, in the New York Times article. Folks, don't worry. We're going to link to this article on this week's show notes, and I encourage you to read it.
Oh, yes. It was so much. It's been exciting. But, okay, going back to what happened, I think I've talked about what kind of had happened. I just wasn't able to mention Thomas John's name.
Right.
So we did the sting. A year passes. The New York Times reporter, says, well, that was really good, but, and I said, well, what? And he says, I kind of need to see a beginning to the end sting. I need to sit in on it from the very, 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 very beginning and follow it all the way through and sit in on everything. I said, okay, I'll put together another sting. So we found a psychic in Connecticut area, which was near where the reporter was. I got tickets. We put together fake Facebook pages. I contacted Kenny Biddle, who is pretty popular in the skeptic community. He's an ghost hunter who's turned skeptic, and he writes for Skeptic magazine. And he and his wife and 4 friends went to a show in I think it was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or someplace like that. And the reporter for the New York Times went with them. He sat behind him a few rows, and he watched everything. I had several Skype conversations with the team in the East Coast, and I talked to them about what I wanted them to do. We also had fake Facebook pages all arranged for them, and I told them they had to stay in character the whole time that they were there, to make as many friends as possible, talk to the people at the bar, everything about the dead people they wanted to see. They were given almost no information, just like it happened with Operation Pizza Roll. So they did not catch that psychic. They were able to film it, but they didn't get read. But we were able to show pretty conclusively it was all cold reading. And that psychic's name was Matt Frazier. Mm-hmm. And so that was all great. So the reporter for the New York Times was all done. He says, this is great. And then almost a year went by. It takes a long time to get these things to happen, you guys.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So then I finally, it's not easy. This is a long process. So then I said, I'm going to revisit Thomas John, who was the first psychic from Operation Pizza Roll. And he had a TV show called Seatbelt Psychic.
Seatbelt Psychic. Can you give us a little overview of what that means?
What it's supposed to be is he's driving some kind of ride share. It never is specific. And people get in the back seat of the car and they drive away, and he reads for them. He gives a reading to them. He says, hey, by the way, I'm a psychic medium. Would you like to talk to your dead family members? I see your dad's right there with you. And then they get all excited, and it's filmed and all that. And I thought, okay. So, Richard, you and I have been doing this for a long time. We know kind of the tells. So I'm watching this show, and I'm going to write up an article for Skeptical Inquirer. That was my whole premise, is to sit down and watch all these episodes and write this up. Most psychics are cold readers. They, it's just banter and wordplay.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, it was too good. I mean, he was accurate, and I could not figure out what was going on, but I was really suspicious.
Yes.
So I noticed several things.
You're absolutely right, and let me just jump in here again. It's one of the tells, and I've seen it here on TV many times, and maybe one day Operation Vegemite or Tim Tam will center on a certain psychic I've seen many times, where the tell for us is accurate information often, and without using the standard cold reading techniques to weasel out information. It's, to you and me and people in the know, it's a pretty big tell.
Yeah, it is a tell. And you know what? You're really selling me on this idea of Operation Vegemite and Tim Tam. We're going to have to do something. So we'll talk, okay? I'm sure
I'll mention a name to you after the interview. Don't worry.
Okay, so I have a feeling that you've got people in the audience right now who are like, I want to do this. I want to go. Please include me. And okay, so when we're ready, we'll invite people to join us. Okay. Anyway, so what happened in Seatbelt Psychic, the other tells were, I've been in an Uber. I've been in these rideshare cars before. And what happens is these people get into the back seat of this very spacious, nice looking leather seat, bench seat car. Mm-hmm. And they sit down in the back seat, and there's at least 6 cameras on them because you can see the camera angles. And I thought, why aren't they reacting to the cameras that are pointed right at them? Okay, that's kind of like, maybe they're really small cameras. I don't know.
Maybe.
But the quality is really good. And I thought, that's okay, all right. And then when they get into the seat, they sit, if there's 2 people in the car, they sit not like a normal person would sit, one side of the back seat and the other side of the back seat near the windows next to the doors.
Yeah.
No, they sat with one person sitting in the middle seat and the other person sitting in the door that they came in. And they weren't necessarily couples, cozying up to each other. It was people who were friends, apparently. And I thought, why are they sitting like that? And I realized that you can see them better on the camera if one person's in the middle. And I thought that was odd. And then I noticed that there was no destination ever given. So, they'd sit down in the car, they'd put their seatbelt on, and then they would pull away from the car, and he would say hi to them, and they'd say hi back. And then he'd say, how's your day? And they'd say, oh, it's really good. And then he would say, so I speak to the dead. Would you like a reading? Or something like that. And they'd, get shocked, and they go, really? Oh, yeah, I'm into psychics. And so I thought, well, where is he driving them to? He's not confirming anything about a destination. He's not putting any information on the, in anything. There's no iPad or anything that you can see. And he's not, he just drives away. And I thought that was strange. And also there's no logos or anything on any of the clothing. And Richard, you know all about that.
I know
nothing.
All about that. Whenever I'm asked to do a TV shoot, an advertising, a corporate video, a TV show, whatever the case may be, the strict instruction is no logos. No stripes, for strobing reasons on camera, but no logos.
Yeah. There wasn't a single hat with a baseball team on it. Nothing. And no Nike swishes or Adidas and that just wasn't normal. And the people just looked a little too polished. They looked like they were everyday clothing, sort of. But their nails were done really well. Their hair was done. Their makeup was done. I thought, anyway, the main thing that happened is that the psychic asked this one woman to give him something to hold, and she handed him her name tag from work, a lanyard, and he took it and he held it in his hand without looking at it and put it right at the right at the camera. I'm sure he didn't mean to point it at the camera, but I was able to pause long enough to see the woman's name. And within about a minute and a half, I was on her Facebook page, which was totally open, Wendy Westmoreland. And there I found she is an actress. And she's, had all these actress and actor friends. And they do part-time acting. And I was able to match them up in a lot of ways on IMDb and so on. And then we realized when I was looking at the very end credits, I noticed that there's a casting team on his show.
So what you're saying is this is a show which it seems to be populated with actors and actresses. This is produced for purely entertainment, or is it trying to convince the audience that this guy is a real psychic getting psychic messages?
Absolutely. There's no disclaimers saying that it's for entertainment only. It is, and I've got lots of screenshots. They might try to add that now, but there wasn't then. And no, it's definitely, I'm speaking to the dead. And then if you read the comments from the people as they get, posted on YouTube, these people are definitely like, oh no, I want a reading from him. I need to talk to my brother. I need to do this.
Yeah.
One of the Wendy Westmoreland was very interesting because her Facebook page had a picture of her brother who had died years ago. And she posted the picture on her Facebook page months before she did this taping for the show. Yeah. And interesting enough, he got that brother with his name. But I include on the article that I wrote called Buckle Up, Seatbelt Psychic, I included that screenshot so people can see that. All the screenshots are available. So anyway, the article, I sent that to the reporter for the New York Times. I said, you know what, you guys, this has been 2 years almost, and if you're not going to publish anything, I'm going to publish this. And he goes, wait. And he went to his editor, and the editors came back, oh my gosh, and so boom, the article started the process, and within about 6 weeks we got the New York Times article out, which is today, and people are flooding my social media, and it's been wonderful. The comments people are saying, about time, finally, it's been great.
So the nub of what we're saying here, folks, is there are people out there purporting to be psychic getting information from the mystical realms where it's pretty clear, pretty obvious, and with evidence to back it up, they're getting their mystical insights from the internet realm.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's as common as we think, because it's really hard to catch somebody doing that. But I think that it is happening. So I think that we there's not much you can do about it, to be honest with you. You can't close down your Facebook page or your social media page that tightly that they couldn't get this information, I promise you, because they can get it from your brother, your mom, or whoever's on your Facebook page who links to something. And we shouldn't hide from social media. The thing is that you should just be aware. When somebody's saying something and you say, there's no way they could have known that. Oh yeah, there's hundreds, if not 1,000 ways they could know that. I'm telling you that if they want to find out something, they can find out something. And if you aren't a good mark, they're going to move to the next person next to you. It's not hard. So the way to handle this is I'm not really so much into educating the population. I'm more interested in making sure this psychic is really uncomfortable and that the people who want to hire him for another TV show understand this guy has been busted big time. And when they do a Google search or find his Wikipedia page, which is right there for everybody to find, they're going to go, oh, maybe we don't want to work with this person. Maybe this isn't such a good idea. It's not entertainment. It's not fun. This is not something that we should just snidely say, well, whatever. No. This kind of stuff really pisses me off. And so that's why I do it.
And just quickly mentioning, of course, you talked about Michelle in Humpty Doo. That's, of course, Michelle Franklin, who is one of the reporters right here on the Skeptic Zone.
Absolutely. She was a great help. And also Stuart Jones.
Of course, Stuart, yes.
Yes, he was a big help. And we had somebody, Daniel from New Zealand, and lots of other people. And they were located all over the world. I just put up a post on Facebook and I said, hey, I'm going to do a psychic sting. I can't tell you who it's going to be. It's going to be about 2 weeks worth of work. You're only going to be managing Facebook pages. It isn't going to cost you anything. And it may or may not work. Do you want to come into the group or not? And people were like, me. And I got to about 12 people. I said, okay, that's it. We're done. And so that's how I put together these stings and things. You kind of have to be paying attention. I'm not going to go to people and say, hey, you over there, I want you to be on my team. I'm looking for people who are just kind of hanging out and saying, I'd like to do something. Oh, look, Susan just put up a post. She needs somebody help. I'm on it, And we don't want anybody flaking out on me. I want people who are serious, who are going to help.
Apart from the article in the New York Times, of course, there are other articles, including over at CSI. Look, folks, I'm going to link to all of those. Susan, Take a breath, have a drink, pet the cat, do whatever you have to do. You're really making the headlines at the moment. I hope next month when I'm in California, somehow by hook or by crook, we can catch up.
That would be great. I know you're going to be speaking on Pi Day, March 14th.
I am, yes.
Up there in Berkeley, and I would be there in a heartbeat. But in Monterey County, with the Monterey County Skeptics, we're also having our own Pie Day with a lecture, and we're going to have a bunch of pie. So I think mine's going to be more fun.
It might be. I might have to bring my talk down to Monterey before long.
Yeah, I would love to have you down here. That would be fabulous. But Pie Day is kind of reserved for eating pie, and we're going to have it at a local library and try to really get the local library patron to come in and learn about science and eating pie and how much fun us skeptics are, find out that we're not that curmudgeonly, no fun kind of person. We're going to be a blast.
I certainly hope so. Well, but for now, again, take a breath. Susan Gerbic, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Hola, les habla Paula desde la hermosa ciudad de Buenos Aires, en Argentina. Cuando escuchamos podcasts, escuchamos los mismos que escucha todo el mundo, como The Skeptic Zone. Ojalá puedan venir a visitarnos algún día. Los esperamos con nuestras riquísimas comidas locales y hasta podemos ir a bailar un tango. Mientras tanto, sigan disfrutando de su dosis semanal de ciencia y pensamiento racional. ¡Chao!
And now we continue our series of articles, reports, interviews, items from The Skeptic, the Journal of Australian Skeptics. We turn to autumn 1995, volume 15, number 1, on page 41, under the title of Alternative Therapy, Homeopathetic, by Jim Galter. Recently, I had occasion to call at local medical clinic for immunization against hepatitis B. While waiting, I browsed the many free leaflets on the waiting room table. I was disturbed to find a pamphlet entitled Homeopathy, the Quiet Achiever of HIV/AIDS Treatment. The extravagant claims of the feature article, so confidently elucidated, set me wondering as to the value of my impending immunization. I made my concerns clear to the administrating doctor, who rolled her eyes in exasperation. She expressed her own concerns at the existence of such medical sabotage and the difficulty it causes her profession. She had no say in policy on such material being available. Much of it is delivered by outside support groups for HIV-positive patrons. The fact that such material is tolerated by a legitimate medical clinic demonstrates the inroads that this magical medical mythology has made into respectable medical institutions. Fortunately, only legitimate medical treatment was available at the clinic, provided by properly qualified medical people. Most disturbing, however, is that this particular clinic is a major centre of treatment for HIV-positive cases in the region. The dangers of this poppycock are very real. One can imagine seriously ill people foregoing crucial medical treatment due to the influence of such drivel. Some excerpts follow. In referencing the early 1800s, due to its dramatic effectiveness against many of the serious epidemic illnesses of the time, such as cholera, typhoid and scarlet fever, regarding a cholera outbreak in London, the death rate of those treated by orthodox doctors was around 52%. Those treated by homeopaths had a 13% death rate. For an American cholera epidemic, treated by orthodox doctors had a death rate of between 48 and 60%. Only 3% of 1,116 patients under homeopathic care died. This compares favourably with modern medical treatment of cholera. The text is littered with more equally extravagant claims, and there is the usual allusion to conspiracies to conceal the truth about homeopathy. If homeopathy was as effective as claimed, then clinical trials would have established it resoundingly, and doctors would have to accept it eagerly. Its dramatic success would have caused the homeopathic-led extinctions of many infectious diseases, such as smallpox, long before dubious modern medical practices had a chance. Modern medicine now has polio on the verge of extinction. Homeopathy has made no contribution to this. Finally, some of the references accompanying the text, presumably the source of the statistics regarding the effectiveness of homeopathy, were dated 1900, 1866, and 1892. Maybe their great antiquity imbues them with credibility, and the homeopaths with credulity. After all, if it's old, it must be good. The truth of homeopathy is, of course, that it has been found to be ineffective. Considering its 170-so years of existence, it has not been able to effectively immunize anyone. Modern immunization, on the other hand, has produced dramatic results, as the following figures testify. Figures for infectious diseases in the United States. Disease, measles, date 1917. Cases, 527,136. Post-immunization cases, 1987, 3,655. And if we leave the text for a moment, I understand that there has been a recent resurgence in measles, thanks largely to the anti-vax crowd. And I think this is in various places around the world. Back to the article. Disease, whooping cough, in 1927, 181,411 cases. Post-immunization, 1987, 2,823. The list goes on with results for diphtheria, particularly striking. In 1927, we had 106,924, and then post-immunization, we have 3. And polio, I guess, is probably the most dramatic. In 1947, 10,847 cases. Post-immunization in 1987, nil. In Australia, the improvement ratio is similar. In recent years, UNICEF and the World Health Organization estimate that 1,300,000 deaths from vaccine-preventable diseases have been averted by their immunization program, but there's a long way to go. Homeopaths claim that some modern medical practices are based on the homeopathic rule of similars. For example, like will cure like. They cite as an example the vaccination against smallpox with cowpox. However, cowpox does not cause the same symptoms as smallpox. Vaccination against smallpox with cowpox was used because of the observation that milkmaids who had been infected with cowpox did not contract smallpox. Hahnemann, who invented homeopathy, noted that quinine produced in himself the symptoms of malaria and concluded that like will be cured by like. In practice, the use of quinine is contrary to this principle. For example, if Hahnemann was correct, a high potentized preparation from an initial quinine sample would treat malaria far better than the ridiculously low potency, homeopathically speaking, of a concentrated dose of quinine. Homeopaths do not typically use a small dose of a substance. By their own admission, they use a non-existent dose. Even so, Dana Ullman, the author of Homeopathic Medicine for Children and Infants, seems unable to be reconciled with this and persists in referring to this extremely small dose. He charges that most skeptics are so unfamiliar with homeopathy that they cannot even describe the basic principles, and they object to it on the basis of the extremely small doses. Not only is Ullman apparently unfamiliar with the major objections of the skeptics, but he seems embarrassed by the fundamental homeopathic principle, mystical energy transfer. Firstly, the objection of skeptics is not just the, quote, extremely small doses, end quote, but because of non-existent doses. It is admitted by homeopaths that not even one molecule of the original substance remains in the typical homeopathic medicine. Secondly, Ullman seems loathed to mention the principle by which homeopathy has traditionally been claimed to work, the idea that some mystical energy unknown to science purported to be transferred from delusion to delusion by shaking. On pages 7 to 9, he manages to explain the making of homeopathic preparation, potentization, the dilution out of existence of the active ingredient, and the alleged increase in potency with each dilution, without once mentioning this mystical energy transfer, a fundamental principle of homeopathy, and one which skeptics object to. One gets the distinct impression that he would rather avoid mentioning it. Ullman attempts to support his argument with references to the ability of sharks to detect extremely small concentrations of blood in the water, and the ability of moths to detect only a few molecules of a pheromone in the air. However, the molecules have to be present in order to be detected, and it takes highly specialized receptors to detect them. Nor has the surrounding water been potentized, a very precise pharmacological process, according to homeopaths. The fact that it is not known why certain modern drugs work does not give credence to the homeopathic cause as Ullman would have us believe. That they do work can be verified in rigorous clinical trials, something that cannot be done for homeopathy. If homeopathy worked, then an effective alternative cure for scurvy would be a potentized preparation delivered from a substance that produces the symptoms of scurvy. Of course, the proper cure for scurvy is vitamin C, preferably by eating fresh fruit and vegetables. What is particularly disturbing about Ullman's book is that it is marketed as medicine for children. While it does occasionally direct the reader to seek modern medical attention for serious diseases and illnesses, it consistently undermines this advice. Best illustrated by example. Asthma is a potentially serious and even life-threatening condition. Infants and children with asthma should receive medical attention. Be aware that conventional drugs used for treating asthma, particularly steroids, can impair immune function and lead to more serious health problems. The following remedies can reduce the distress that an acute attack can create. But homeopathic constitutional care is necessary to achieve a lasting cure. The constant use throughout the book of words like remedy and cure in relation to serious diseases, including some with no known cure, is a dangerous lie. Children who are denied proper medication for asthma are having their lives placed in jeopardy. Modern medicine is criticized when it uses animals on which to test new medicines and techniques. The alternative medicine community has solved this problem. They use their own children. A curious thing caught my eye on the verso of the title page. There, arrogantly displayed in bold type, are the words, "The moral right of the author has been asserted." Obviously, this is alternative morality. And that was Homeopathetic by Jim Galter, published in Volume 15, Number 1 of the Skeptic magazine, the Journal from Australian Skeptics. One of the thousands of articles, items, reports and interviews available at your fingertips by visiting www.skeptics.com.au.
Calling all Skeptic Zone listeners. Do you live in or near Glasgow, or are you planning to visit sometime? Then you're in luck, because the Glasgow Skeptics have got your Monday nights sorted. We're committed to filling up every available Monday night with talks on science and skepticism. Past speakers include Eugenie Scott, Jerry Coyne, Michael Marshall, Nate Phelps, Tom and Cecil from Cognitive Dissonance, P.Z. Myers, Richard Wiseman, A.C. Grayling, Noah Heath and Eli from The Scathing Atheist, Simon Singh, Rebecca Watson, and a multitude of local academics and skeptics. There's literally nothing better you can do on a Monday night in Glasgow that doesn't involve taking your clothes off. So come join us. We've also got a vibrant online community. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and get involved with the discussion. Glasgow Skeptics. Self-help for your brain.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Get better soon, Saunders. Now, if you are in Sydney on the 16th of March, come along to my gig, Maynard's Love Shack. That's at 36 Glebe Point Road in Sydney. Only $10 from 8 till 4 upstairs at the Red Bar there. We'll be doing all sorts of groove all night on the 16th of March. You'll be interested to see how skeptics can dance. Or if they can. I'm skeptical about skeptics dancing. That's Maynard's Love Shack, and there's a link to it in the show notes here. And if you're in Canberra, why not go along to a new talk hosted by the local skeptics there? Talking plain about GMOs. That's on Tuesday, the 12th of March, from 6 till 7:30. It's at the Belconnen Community Service Centre. And it's free. That's the 12th of March, 6 o'clock with the Canberra Skeptics. Link in this week's show notes. And finally, Richard Saunders himself will be giving, it's a big one. This Thursday night is a big one. Clear your calendars, anybody in Sydney. That's right. Richard Saunders will be giving a talk about psychic detectives this Thursday night at Sydney Skeptics in the pub. Or maybe he'll be giving a croak or something, or maybe he'll just be making this noise. No, that's the noise the audience will be making. I think he'll be making this noise. He's such a drinker. That's this Thursday night, Sydney Skeptics in the pub, all about psychic detectives with Richard Saunders. So go there or just be somewhere else. As I like to say, skeptic up, skeptic down, skeptic out of town. See you later.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics,
or any other skeptical organization.
Oh, what a great effort. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It really was nothing. Oh, and my haunted harmonica before I go. Spooky.